Hey, what's up, everybody? Listen, few things before I go into this explanation of mine. First off, the lighting is not supposed to be dramatic or anything. I just, when we're talking about something like this, I don't want a Pac-Man behind me and a bunch of arcades and stuff like that. Also, this is a one-off. We've done stuff like this before. Like when back in 2017, we used to cover school shootings till there was just much too many of them, and we kind of had people call in and blow off steams and other and terrorist events and things like that. This is not. There's no act here. We will going back. I could flip it on and off. I just seeing what's going on in the world is very like little for me to joke or talk about. So, guess what? It's my platform, and I can pretty much say whatever I want. My credentials, whatever you want them to be. I see a lot of people in the media. It's all the same stuff. It's sort of like when the gun issue comes up. It's people repeat the same talking points and things like that. I'm not interested in regurgitating any of that, and that's not because I think I'm above it. I don't think I'm going to be above it. I'm going to do my absolute best not to make this like a left-right Democrat Republican thing. I'm just going to tell you how I feel. There will be no geopolitical rant in the sense that this is what needs to be done from any of those political perspectives. I certainly don't know. I'm not qualified probably to say that. I just think as someone who follows war history very closely and somebody who did serve, I'm a non-combat. I was combat support. I spent a little time in Iraq. I have seen the horrors of the war and since some of the victims in the hospital. I've seen what it does to people. I know people that have been killed on both sides. I've even seen people that didn't get injured in war die years later, either from suicide or something they attracted, or simply just die of a heart attack in a car. I have some idea. Thank you. I'm not going to read any of the donations. You don't have to donate in this one. I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm not going to act like this is just like the New York Times collects. I'm simply going to talk the way I see things. It's going to be brutal. I'm going to ignore stuff on both sides that kind of glorify violence and stuff like that. But I'm going to be talking about violence. And like I heard Tim Pool say, he doesn't have a solution. I unfortunately do have a solution, but it's a simple soldier solution. And you guys can. It's as Blue Skiddo. It's going to be pretty brutal. As far as here's another thing I won't do. I'm not going to tell you that you're a bad person if you don't take my side. I promise. There's a lot of that on Twitter right now. You can put it one in the chat if you're seeing it. If you're not on my side, you got to be on my side. No, I'm not going to do any of that. But I'm going to do this without sitting the fence because I definitely have an opinion. So you're going to get my brutal opinion on how it comes off and stuff like that. But before I do something like that, there's nothing worse than a war. There's nothing worse than human beings can do to each other than war. But unfortunately, it is a part of the human condition. It is going to happen no matter how many times we listen to John Lennon. That's the simple fact of the matter. I don't think that I'm above it. I don't think I'm better than your average man. I'm better than no Jew or Muslim. I am just an American from New Jersey that probably knows just as much as you. And I have a little bit of a platform, and I just feel like using it now. And you guys can elect. One of my favorite soccer guys, always when he comes on, he's like a Marxist. And I'm not a huge fan of Marxism, as you might know. And he just, look, I'm going to do this. This is my platform. If you don't like it, leave. This is your warning from me, right? But I do promise to do this without too much finger pointing. As you know, Hamas has launched what appears to be a targeted attack on civilians in Israel. The horrors are out there. You can go check them out for yourself. And I just ask you, when you look at them, don't look at it like you're looking at a live leak. That's somebody being slaughtered. That's really real. That's happening. I remember before I went to Iraq seemed like a movie until I was there. It seemed like something I rooted for, sort of, blindly, like shock and awe. and all that bullshit that I fell for during the war. I was very much a patriot. I do still consider myself a patriot to values, those traditional values, but unfortunately I have a very big black hole for you. I speak to you as a very disenfranchised American. I have not lived in the United States for almost 20 years now. I have no intention of moving back. It's not because Germany is so much better. It's just that I don't recognize the place that I'm from. I am also asking in the future, because a lot of you guys and I have been very encouraging you about joining the military and the American Army. I have sort of said this before, but hopefully this makes this 100% clear. I will no longer encourage any young man or woman to go into the United States military. I don't recognize it. I don't recognize my own country. I don't recognize what's going on. I think this, without getting too deep in the political weeds, I think this is what we're seeing from Afghanistan to here is the result of a collapsing American empire. And not traditionally. And if you look throughout history, like the Roman Empire, like when the Greeks, there was reverberations worldwide as these world leaders fell apart. I think that's fair to say that's a fact throughout history. You saw as the English Empire fell apart, you saw reverberations. I think that's probably my biggest black pill. What you're seeing in Israel, Ukraine, and other places, this is the reverberations from what I think the Americans had probably dropped the ball. And I don't think they make, and they were kind of running out, and I'm Gen X. They were kind of running out of them, my generation. I don't think they make people like me, not that I'm better, with values like that. I think it was considered passé as I was growing up. I think it's been eliminated, and I don't think you need certainly some kind of majority of people to feel the way I feel about the country for it to really be the keystone in the rest of civilization, which I think is being chipped away at, unfortunately. And I think that's the result of what you're seeing. And of course, you know, my heart goes out to everyone that's suffering. And I can't really go into that. I can only go into, no, it's echoes of a hot war, Ollie. We are marching towards, it's in my backyard too. Was it 2 borders away? Yeah, what am I? Yeah, so that's, go to the Czech Republic and yeah, I think it's 2 borders away from me. I think what you're seeing is a collapse of the American Empire, the old world order, and something will rise in its place. And when that happens, women and children suffer. And it's not me fear-mongering. It's, to me, this is what happens throughout history when stabilizing forces collapse. This is not me trying to scare you, even though it's going to come off that way. This is me not trying to be political or indoctrinate you in my political ideology, even though that's probably the way it'll be done. This is just the way I see it. I think history backs me up, but I'm certainly willing to listen to why I'm wrong. As far as what needs to be done, I guess I'm just going to look at it as well, how has it been done in the past? I don't consider this just an Israeli intelligence failure. I think this is the United States and Western intelligence failure. How did we not see this coming? It seems like we always say that. Lusitania, Pearl Harbor, 9/11. Don't we seem to find ourselves here? My personal experience, and this is not political. There's all different types of wings in the intelligence area of the Army. I found them the most incompetent to deal with, the most annoying to deal with. The whole S squad over there. Where were they in this one? I don't know. They don't seem to get anything right. They don't seem to win any wars. Israel wins wars. We'll go over that in a minute. The United States doesn't win wars. All right, we won World War II. Korea was armistice. Vietnam could be taken, even though there was never a major battle loss, take that as a loss. We had a couple skirmishes between that and Gulf War I, where we won and walked. Only have to go back about 15 years later, lose hundreds of thousands of Iraqis were to die, only to walk away in 2010. Fortunately, after a long period of ISIS slaughtering kids, lighting them in fire, that does seem to have stabilized in some kind of facsimile of a democratized government, and that's great. That's great. I have nothing but, I met a lot of good Iraqis, and I hope, it's nice to know that, I mean, me and Dave are talking, and, you know, ISIS was basically in control of the area, the Iraq area, and it was nice to hear that that's not the case anymore. So, what happens? Well, I looked at World War II. What happened in World War II? Total victory. And that's basically what I'm going to propose to you. Total victory. This is not some kind of geopolitical rant or what can be done or stuff like that. Total victory. Like World War II. And I'm going to tell you, I got another Blackville for you, because we seem to be incapable of winning a war. I don't think we have it in us for a total victory. Total victory is not something our politicians think they have enough political capital to spend, because that's all they think of. They don't think about what's right. They don't think about dying for the cause. They worry about the political capital they'll have after total victory takes place. And what they worry about, and not being able to achieve it and then having spent the capital. But in thinking like that, they just spend the capital and don't achieve anything. Vietnam, the war I was in, Korea. So, what is the solution? Total victory. Now, if you could tell me, like, ripping the Band-Aid off, because that's all we seem to be doing since the 30s, we're ripping the Band-Aid off slow. If you would tell me that total victory right now would cost, because let me tell you something, this is going to sound cold, but this is the way generals look at things. This is the way soldiers look at things. This is the way presidents are supposed to look at things. This is how they look. Well, how much is it going to cost to invade Japan? Oh, how many people are going to get killed with a bomb? We'll take the bomb. That's how they think. That's how they justify it. Whether that's justifiable from your religion or your person, but that's how it works. So that's how we're going to do it here. So if you could tell me in 50 years that millions will die under whatever the hell it is we're doing now, and total victory will be hundreds of thousands, but after that it'll be done, and possibly skirmishes after that, well, I'm going to take the 100,000. I'm going to do the simple math. Now, if that's not the case, and I certainly couldn't measure something like that, but whatever gets the less amount of death, whether you have to go to war now and annihilate everything, or you can keep going like this, where you could slowly surpass the numbers that would happen if there was a total victory now. But we don't have that. It's basically, from what I understand, it's only okay to kill Germans. Every other one of our enemies are a victim of something, except, of course, the Germans, who had plenty of war crimes committed against them by Americans, by British, because it's a byproduct of war and total victory. So, what needs to be done?
Listen, fuckhead.
I think somebody needs to win. So this doesn't drag out, because I drag out. Somebody just wrote Dresden. Yeah, nobody cares about Dresden. So why would I care after the deliberate targeting of civilians if Dresden happens in Gaza? I don't. I would rather it not happen, but I'm certainly not going to stick my nose in the air and pretend that I'm outraged, and I'm going to do what politicians said. Yes, I understand the Israeli spot, but you can't do that. Well, yes, you can. If you're trying to achieve total victory, because I got news for you. You know how wars end? When there's total victory, when the enemy is defeated. You know how not to win a war? Do what we did in Vietnam. Do what we did in Korea. Do what we did in Iraq. That's how you lose. What went on in those countries? Well, we tried to do it on the cheap. We tried to do it without killing absolutely everybody, which just dragged it out longer and more people got killed. So what should the Israelis do? Well, I'm going to be really, really clear on what I think the Israelis could do, and I'm not being political about this. I'll show you how I'll justify it historically. Total victory. If that's what they decide to do, I think it should be supported. I refuse to believe that Hamas and Lebanon and other religious extremists would do anything other than total victory if they had the opportunity. I think what you saw over the last 48 hours was an attempt at total victory. That was an attempt. That's it. That's the only thing I can come up with. I used to have this feeling, kids, when they start getting involved in politics or history class or anything of that nature, the two-state solution. Well, that sounds great. Now, I've been told, I don't know for a fact, that the two-state solution couldn't even be done now because there's no way to defend it with defend the areas that you would concede to the Palestinians. There's no way to keep from a vacuum of other Arab states going in there. And there's no way to defend it after it's been given up. Well, the rockets came from Gaza. I asked my father, I remember being said, why can't we just leave? Because they will fortify and attack the areas that all the Israelis leave. That's what's happened. It happened recently. The Israelis are long out of Gaza, and now it's a military installation. So, what has to happen? What happened to the Germans? What happened to the Italians? What happened to the Japanese? They were destroyed. What went on in all those things? All the most horrible things that you thought was common in Vietnam. That wasn't. By the way, more war crimes by American troops in World War II than Vietnam. The good war. If you go statistically, Vietnam troops were fantastic. And on average, obeyed the rules of war, certainly more than their enemy, but more than their more respected veterans not 30 years earlier. That's a fact. But one thing our Vietnam soldiers didn't have was the opportunity to have total victory. I know that because that's what I saw in Iraq. We were told we could do it on the cheap, and it didn't work. Actually, Iraq's probably a better example because they seem to have a democratized government. We nation built. Are you guys going to be visiting Iraq this summer? No, you're not. So now you can decide what a good job we did. The only time in history when this seems to go away is when one side wins. But that's ugly. And that's all I can see. If there was a two-state solution, I would love that. All right, you have the Arab side and you got the Jewish side, and that's it. Well, I'll tell you why that's never going to happen. First of all, my father was right. I remember I asked him that in 1989. And in 2005, the Israelis had been leaving Gaza for some time, but they're completely out of there. And it was fortified, and that's where most of the rockets came this weekend, and have come from since 2005. So let me give you how I understand things work over there, okay? This is how. In 1914, during the First World War, the Brits take over pretty much the whole area, chase the Ottoman Empire out. The Ottoman Empire falls apart as most of what was left of monarchies inside of Europe. And in 1936, the first two-state solution was offered. The first one. This had an 80-20 split for Arabs. In 1936, an 80-20 split. This was the idea of the crown to keep things, because they were constantly killing each other. The Arab faction rejected this two-state plan. This was followed by violence. That was repelled by the Jews. In 1947, the UN this time, at the request of the Brits, asked to come up with a solution. The UN being as useless as they are, just as useless as they are then and now, came up with this. A 60-40 split, but for the Jews. The Arabs have lost ground. They have rejected this. Shortly after that, the Six-Day War took place. Oh, excuse me, that's in 1967. We'll get to that. So the violence was repelled. I think that finally finished up in 1948, if I'm not mistaken, the year my father was born. Now we go to 1967, the Six-Day War. This Six-Day War, if you can imagine this, the West Bank, there was no West Bank. It was Jordan, Lebanon, and Egypt attack the Israelis and get absolutely annihilated by Israel, and they lose the West Bank. So they actually lost land. They lost land. After that, in 1960, the Israelis offered the land back with conditions and stuff like that. This was rejected. Because the Arab states, this is where things really start to kick off. No negotiation after that, right out the door. So the Israelis took the West Bank and they got more land. So this is 2 hours. We're up to 3 offers being rejected. In 2000, Israel offers 94% of the West Bank and they're going to do like sort of Berlin split in East Jerusalem. East Jerusalem would be the Arab side. Yasser Arafat and the PLO reject it. They rejected it. The people that fired the rockets and killed women and children yesterday, they rejected that. In 2008, a repackage of the same deal was offered. It was rejected, followed by violence. By the way, every time this is rejected, it's followed by violence. Now, I've been told, I don't know how true it is, by military that if you were to give up this area, there's just no way to defend it anymore. And from what I saw last night, I guess that's the case. So what's inevitably going to happen? Well, exactly what they want to happen. They want Israel to go in there and mow everybody down, do something that they've never done. We had something done by the terrorist forces that are unprecedented. The Israelis are more than likely going to do something unprecedented. Gaza is heavily, heavily populated. Civilians are going to die. And I don't know what goes on from him, but perhaps the Israeli pulls out until the next time it happens, until long after I'm dead. So for all the people, like Tim Pool and others that think they got a plan or a two-state plan, I don't know. I don't know. I think the hatred is just too deep. Somebody has to win. I think the violence will spread outside. I think other Middle Eastern countries will get involved. I think you will see terrorist events inside Europe. I think some of the protests in the United States will probably boil over to violence. I think this will get worse. I think the Chinese will more than likely invade Taiwan. I think that what you'll see a little more of the same in Russia, and slowly but surely, Ukraine to be grinded away. We don't have the leadership to combat this. We don't have the values in government that I was raised with, and people like me were raised with. They're pretty much dinosaurs. And I think that those are the few people that held this thing together, and you're seeing the result of it falling apart. So the only thing I personally see, and this is not political, is somebody winning. And that's going to be awful. You know, Vault wrote me. Vault grew up in a Middle Eastern country, and he wrote me, and it was really kind of sad. And he was just like, you know, I'm watching what happened. I'm horrified. It's just, this is awful. It's terrified. And I was reading it. I'm like, Jesus, Vault, you don't have to tell me that. It almost felt like somebody like the white guilt types, and you just want to throw up a little bit. Not that I felt that way. I just thought, look, wait, Vault doesn't have to be talking to this way. Believe me. No white person fucking wrote me that. Just Vault, because he wanted to make sure that I know that he wasn't one of them, which is sad, because we've been friends for years, and you don't have to tell me that. I know it, buddy. I know most Arabs don't feel that way. I know most Muslims don't feel that way. The problem is enough do. And that's why there needs to be total victory. Nobody wants that. I don't want that. I have a little bit of a better idea what this looks like when it's said and done, and I'm pretty sure at what total victory looks like. I think I know, but I don't. So you don't have to apologize to me, even covertly. I know more people are out there like you than the maniacs. The problem is there's more than enough of the maniacs. You come from a very good family. I would never take this out on Arabs. I'm taking this out on religious extremists. And they need to go. I felt this way for a very long time, since 9/11. Some people might say you're siding with the Jews. I always side with civilization over religious extremists of any kind. It's really irrelevant whether they blew up the towers that I grew up looking at every morning. Total victory. That is literally the only solution. It is ripping the Band-Aid off quickly. By the way, total victory is really ugly, folks. It's really ugly. It's a lot uglier than what you saw in the streets with naked women being paraded around and murdered. It's a lot uglier than that German girl being raped and murdered on camera. Because it's total victory. So I don't care what they do. Like, short of lining up children and blowing their brains out in a line, or doing what the Japanese did to the Chinese during the Second World War, there's almost nothing that the Israelis can do that won't be justified. Almost nothing. Maybe short of a nuclear weapon, short of what I just said. But I tell you what it isn't. Continuous bombing. A full-scale, heavy 300,000 army invasion of Gaza. That's completely understandable under circumstances like this. Nobody has to tolerate this shit. Nobody has to tolerate that. We didn't say that when the Russians invaded Kiev, because that's their land. That's their people. So that's it. There's no left and right solution. There's the same solution there's always been throughout human history. It's at the end of a gun. Because everything we've done before this that doesn't involve what I just said just seems to drag it out. No, nukes wouldn't work. Nuke could leak over here. Believe me, I don't want a nuke. Well, I'm not that. I'm farther from there, but I'm not that far. And that's it. Anything less of what I said will drag this out long after I'm dead. And I do think this is a side effect of a collapsing empire, and the people that are running the empire are all Neros, all of them. I don't think the things that made the United States great, because I think what made the United States great is a lot of this stuff like this kind of got cut off. It got nicked because of fear. Well, now you got your wish, and to some extent my wish too. America is not the world police. Just ask the Afghans about that. Tommy being who knew to be ironic. No, it wouldn't. It would be the result of a falling empire. And an oinkophobic, I think that's what's called, oinkophobic view of the West by Westerners. That's what it would be. It would be for all the reasons I said it was. The most surreal thing about this is a certain group of people rally around Hamas. No, that's not surreal. That was always the case. Let me tell you something about anti-Semitism. It is on both wings. On one wing, it's because of religious and racial reasons. On the other wing, it's because they detest the merchant class, and their Jews are seen as the merchant class. It's just as insane. Isn't it funny when people start showing signs of mental illness, they always seem to bring up the Jews. They always seem to have it's weird, right? When anybody gets crazy, it's always the Jews. It's always the Jews. The only other group I heard like that is the Masonic orders. But they have nothing on the Jews, the Masonic orders. I've heard they're behind everything, and I've heard the Jews are behind everything on both sides, on both wings. And it's insane on both sides. I could never tell any country, and I'd really like to see something, the United States show some leadership over, and it's never going to happen. Because I think I'm starting to believe the left. That our companies have a vested interest in war going on forever. I never thought I would come to that conclusion, but I have. I think that's our special interest in both parties. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit there and shit on the Ukrainians because my country doesn't show leadership. I like to think that I defend it the same way they are, the best they can. I can feel for the Ukrainians and think that the United States blew it, and I can think that we put ourselves in a position to see Ukraine get invaded and still have sympathy for the Ukrainians without putting a flag on my Twitter and one hand talk about peace and another hand become a military expert on bombing Russians. I bet you're sick of that. I'm sick of that. So now we have a bunch of experts in that area. It's funny, like we have so many experts about Israel, yet nothing can get solved. If we have this many experts all the time, how come nothing gets solved? I don't know. The only thing that I see historically that stops this is a victory. What does it look like? It looks like annihilation. Is it, and that's what you got to ask, is it bad to have annihilation now, annihilation ceilings at a certain amount of death, or to have this go another 100 years? Or wait for that nuclear weapon? Iran's involved. Weren't we trying to help them get nuclear weapons or nuclear power just recently? How much you want to bet that'll still happen? Lebanese are involved? They dipped out? Tommy C. Pretends to say now he's calling for an annihilation. It's unreal. No, I'm not calling for it. You're not listening. I'm saying historically, that's what total victory looks like. Annihilation. It looks like what happened to the Jews yesterday, but it doesn't stop. Now, I'm not saying target anybody, but you have to win. And I also want to point out that nobody cares. We saw those kind of tactics used in World War II against the Germans, and nobody gives a shit to this day. Why? Because the Germans, had they won the war, they would have annihilated everybody else. I would like a two-state solution. I think that would be great. The problem is, nobody wants that. They want to annihilate all the Jews. Which does put the Jews in a position like, well, somebody's got to go. Calling for it? No, I'm calling for saying, but they fucking both throw up the white flags tomorrow, you idiot. I'd love for it to stop. It's not going to. It's not realistic. You know, and you know what'll keep it going? Tom, let's just keep doing what we're doing. And something tells me you are rooting for a side, or you think a certain side would make the world a better place. You just don't have the guts to say it. I do. I have the guts to say it. I think if civilization won, we'd all be better off. I think a lot of Germans being dead in World War II made things a lot better off for everywhere else. But that's okay to say. So, what's got to happen? Somebody's got to win. What does winning look like? Fucking a victory. What is a victory? Annihilation. That's what happened to the Germans. They were annihilated. Dresden's still fucked to this day. I lived here. I've been to Dresden. It's a shell of a European city. That's what it looks like. You know what doesn't look like victory? Vietnam. Total shithole. Holocaust took place right after Cambodia, after we left. We lost. And it was a horror. Really didn't get straightened out to the 1990s. I'm not telling you anything that our history books aren't telling you. I'm not coming to this from a political standpoint. I'm not giving you a fucking lecture like Ted Cruz. Or like we could do this. Yeah, we could win this war. It's like George Bush. We could win this war and we can look good with the New York Times. I'm telling you, it's completely fucking ugly. If Israel totally annihilates Palestine, you could see Middle Eastern countries getting into the mix and closing World War III. Yes! So, no pro, and this is not an insult, but so we have a salute. We could keep it going the way it is, and maybe if that's the best choice, where we just have this every like 10 or 15 years, maybe that's better, and it just goes on forever, or somebody can win. Tommy basically wants to be realistic, and I'm basing the realism on two things. A, the Arab countries, the Arab parts, and the indigenous Arabs from that area that is now called Israel were offered several plans, and they turned it down. And I'm basing it on history of what stops violence. Victory. That's it. That's it. Tommy, may I ask, what does it look like? Airstrikes, ground forces? I don't exactly know. It looks like white flags. So whatever it takes to draw a white flag. Minus what I said before, like, you know, killing kids in the streets like the Japs did in China. And, of course, nuclear, because that's just going to be an environmental catastrophe. I think it looks like Dresden. But I hope I'm wrong. Does that make any sense? I think it looks like Dresden. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope it doesn't have to go that far. It looks like, yeah. I think, but I hope it's less than that. But history doesn't tell me it would be any less than that. It would freak so many people out. Yes! Or we could just go back to what we're doing. And I'm okay with that too, as long as it doesn't get in my backyard. I'm okay with that. I don't want my family killed. It could very well happen. You know, violence could erupt over here at any minute. My kid goes to school. I don't see him all day. Why is it we only talk about civilian deaths when it comes to Gaza and the West Bank? We never get a number of the Israelis. It's only for the perceived weaker group who was allowed to grow to the point where they did what they did 48 hours ago. I'm not saying I'm for nukes. I'm for a victory, like what happened to the Germans and what happened for the Italians. And it's ugly. But nobody cares because back then, the media didn't report about how the Germans suffered after World War II. You know why? Because they didn't care. They didn't care. Everybody was united that it was completely acceptable that Germans were annihilated and melted in Dresden. They were completely fine with it. Both the left and the right were aligned on that. The difference is we are not aligned on total victory. Fun fact. This from Vault. The Palestinian areas look like shit before the world started, even though the war started when compared. Because they're just terrorist staging grounds. Of course they look like shit. You think terrorists care about the other Palestinian people? Are you kidding me? They know that Israel is going to respond. So I'm looking through this the simplest way possible. I'm not pretending to be a wise. I'm trying to be as realistic as possible. If there's another way, certainly that leads to less death, I'm all for it. I just don't see, personally, you asked me, that's what I said. Unfortunately, sometimes the way to stop violence is with violence. See, that's the biggest lie. The violence never solved everything. It solves everything. Not anything, everything. Historically. And that's sad. And that has more to do with the human condition than it does like Arabs and Jews and whites and blacks. And it's historically correct. We just like to think that this particular 21st century is above that. We're not. We are no different than our barbaric ancestors when it simply comes down to it. No different. No better. Our tech got better. We had sustained peace for a long period of time, pretty much from 1945 to 2001. You know why we got a sustained peace? Total victory. That's it. That's what you guys all grew up in. That's what you take for granted, and you have no idea the suffering that took place on all sides to create that environment that you grew up in. As an American kid, it was drilled into my head that you, who are living it up over here, might have to go over there and die to keep this going, and that's okay. But I also grew up with kids that say, hey man, that's a bunch of bullshit. Me being the odd guy out, I went for the bullshit. So historically, what I'm saying is not arguable. If there's more nuance to it and there's a better way, but considering this has been going on since, when I say 1936, I'm pretty sure no one could figure it out. I have just as good an opinion as everybody else. Can't wait for the next 10 years of constant conflicts. Yeah, well, Tommy, are you saying there's going to be World War III? I think we're kind of already there. I think Zelensky might be right. You know, in 1938, when Poland was invaded, nobody called it World War II. They called it an invasion of Poland. Everybody thinks it like the way war works is one guy wears blue and the other guy wears gray. And then it's declared and given this. No, that's only retrospectively put into place. The World War I and II. That's all retrospective. That's what historians call it to make sense of the whole thing. As long as their religion is done. No, that's not true. Historically, that's not true. Somebody wins. Somebody has to win. It's unwinnable with the fact that the political wings are divided on who they think they should win. And what both wings pretend is they want peace, and they don't. Neither of them do. They want somebody to win, but they don't want to do what I just did and say, total victory. That's it. Historically, I'm right. Now, I told you what I think should happen. What's going to happen? The Israelis will fight back. It'll probably be uglier than we remember it in recent history. I think Taiwan will be invaded. I think the Chinese will probably gain more power. And for the next 10 or 20 years, the United States will lose more and more influence and more economic power in the world stage. That's what I think is going to happen. And I'm hoping it happens, doesn't get really bad, authoritarian before I die. Which I'm thinking, let's see, I only have, I'm almost 50, so I think I have about 20, 25 years left. My luck, I'll live till I'm 90. But with a bad heart, I might check out. So, viel Glück, mein Freund. Look, the last of my generation of people that thought like I did, the Americans, they were dying out. And there's less and less every year. I don't know what the fuck you're going to do, because I personally believe that's what held things together. A total victory in 1945, and people that believe this silly shit about watering the tree of liberty. As time went on, as generations went on, less and less of those people exist. They think there's another way to do it, even though they have no results to show for it. You're almost 50. Yeah, Buzzsaw, thank you. Tommy just enlisted. No, I didn't. I'm done. And here's another thing. I'm telling you not to enlist. Take care of your own. Don't get involved in this. I couldn't tell you to do this in America. I can't good faith and good conscience. I don't know what you're joining. No idea. The only thing that's going to change is the leader. The leadership has to change. And then probably there has to be some kind of like violence in the United States to get rid of the people that have infiltrated our CIA and FBI and other police departments. They have to be gone for everything to go back the way it was. And guess what? That's not going to happen. We blew it. Like the Greeks did. Like the Romans did. Like the Mongolians did. Like the English did. It's our turn. This is the natural order of things. You eventually lose. The party's over. You were warned. Your parents were warned. And their parents were warned. But we thought there was another way. And now we're going to pay because there's not. Now we just have to nuke each other. I don't know. You know, there's something to be said for, and I know a lot of guys, they don't remember, like I grew up during the Cold War. There was a constant threat of nuclear violence, and that really just kind of went away in 1990. I actually wonder if that Mexican standoff didn't keep peace for at least half the world. The rest of the world, of course, behind the Iron Curtain, suffered miserably. I've seen evidence of myself with my own eyes. If you go to a place like Enfort and Dresden and stuff like that, you still see it. You see it. You see how the economy, the population, how it's affected things. I can only imagine what the Czech Republic's like. I really have no interest in going to East Germany. You know why? It's poor. They lost. That's what total victory looks like. It's ugly. And don't join this shit. What are you going to do? The Democratic Socialists of America just came out. All right, this is as political as I'll get. And they're supporting Hamas. A United States Senator, AOC, and several other members of squads are members of that organization. You're going to fight for that? Not me. People used to call in here and Verst and Vulcan backed me up, and they said, "What am I in for? What am I?" So here's what to do. And then a few people went in and out, and thank you, I guess. We still have a picture of you, do you? By the way, we're going back to silly stuff tomorrow. I just had to get this out. What the fuck was I talking about? The dick pic fucking thing that really threw me. You know, I used to encourage guys. I can't do that in good conscience. I think the people that run our country now more resemble sort of a quasi-fascist, authoritarian, uncomfortable relationship between tech, corporations, and government, and they're just too close. And I don't think anything like that's ever reared its head. The closest thing, maybe in Italy, but fell apart reasonably quick, thankfully. And I don't think this is falling apart quickly. There's too many cameras everywhere. There's too much control. And COVID told me it's coming. I saw it. We saw the test balloon. And people didn't really respond in the way that I would hope they would under those circumstances. So yeah, this is a huge black pill. And it's not because I'm trying to scare you. It's because this is the way I feel. I do feel this way. I think the only way to avoid this is something that can't happen because we don't have the stomach for it. And that's total victory. Total victory is ugly. What you need to do is you have to have the media paint total victory really pretty and wonderful and pure. You know, kind of like the Democratic Socialists are painting Hamas right now. Oh, how heroic for them to invade Israel. Well, that's exactly what we did to the Germans. We're divided in the West. So you can win fast or lose slow. You need a tight propaganda machine. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. I am not being any less realistic than that. And I don't even think it's a propaganda machine as much as it like Westerners being united. Westerners were united. So we dressed up the bombing at Dresden as being justified. And the bombing of Gaza will not be. That's it. I don't know. Is that propaganda? Maybe it is. I don't know. It's so interesting to me that you can read about all these war crimes that the good guys committed in World War II. And by the way, I'm glad our guys won. Let's make that clear. But it doesn't change the horrors. We like the winners write history. The Russians had a pretty good, clean bill of health. When they went through Berlin, guess what they did? They raped and murdered everybody. Germans still talk about it today. The good guys are just who won. That's who it is. So, how bad do you want it? Do you want to live like you're living? Do you want the United States in the future? You want Israel not to be bombed every other day? Well, yeah, here you go. Germany lost, you fucking moron. Good guys, Germany. Thankfully, they did. But we have to pretend with the Germans, the good war, that we didn't do all the things that every army does and every military does to win. And it's usually just fucking destruction of civilians until they go to their leaders and tap the fuck out. We're done. Surrender. That's it. That's what happens. That's how every war works. And we tell ourselves, because I think that the thing that made it the worst was like probably Gulf War I, where you have bombs that can hit like address point, like perfect points on the map, which is great. Saves a lot of people alive. It's not perfect. You're still going to kill a couple kids. Got the wrong address. Did Obama get the wrong address? Pretty sure he did. Killed an American kid? I don't know. Ask Tim Pool about that. Oh, you know why Obama's not a war criminal? Because he didn't lose. It's that simple. Do I think he is? No. But had there been a transfer of power, yeah, he would have stood for crimes at The Hague. He's just not in a position to get it. Hey, guess what happens if there's some kind of coup in Russia and they put up they throw Vladimir Putin up for sacrifice and throw him in The Hague? He dies. He's a war criminal. Guess what happens up until then? He's the leader of Russia. So, how bad do you want it? Not that bad. I'll go in. That's just my opinion. I think it's backed by history. I think it's backed by past decisions by the Palestinians from their leadership. And I hope I'm wrong about all of it. But if all you have is I'm calling for the death of children when I'm clearly not, and you're deliberately not listening to me, then you're not really telling me that I'm wrong about anything. Like, I will let you vent for as long as I can take it. I'll take calls. I mentioned the lighting in the beginning, Nick. So don't even give me. No. I mentioned the lighting in the beginning. I did. I said I'm not trying to be dramatic. I just didn't want all the what I was going to talk about. What I was going to talk about without Pac-Man behind me. That's the reason I did it. I made it abundantly clear in the beginning. Thank you. I went for an hour straight. Hey, I'm going to cut this and I'm going to goof around in the after show. The only way to end this is to have total Palestinian victory. Gotcha. Well, you know what? To be fair, Ruthless Rose, fair. What I'm calling for is somebody to win. I would rather it be civilization. But yeah, that's a possibility. Let's be realistic. I've been trying to be realistic. If they win, it's over. I don't know what over looks like. I'm guessing over with Israel looks better for me. And other people and other Westerners, I don't think over Palestinians get the sled. I don't think that looks good for anybody. In fact, I think it looks like a continuing and never-ending Holocaust. What a crazy thought to have. They got complete control of Gaza when I was a kid, and now it's just a staging ground for terrorism. Exactly what I was told it was going to be. By the way, there is a road to peace, and it has been done before. You can ask Egypt. And then they killed their leader. This is one of the first things I remember as a kid, Sadat. Suez Canal was Israel's. They gave it back. There's never been a problem since. But every other time, and I'll name them right here, this is what I've been told here, 1936, 1947, 1967, 2000, and 2008. And by 2008, you had 94% of the West Bank up for grabs. Everything was said no. You know why? Here's what I think. This is going to be crazy. I think the crazy religious kooky Muslims want total victory. And by that means a never-ending Holocaust. I don't believe the Jews want a never-ending Holocaust. Call me crazy. I think that's. So, in a sense, I know what you're trying to say, 3-Ampos Cathardos, or whatever the fuck your name is. You're right. I chose civilization. I guess you chose something else. Maybe you know something more than I do. Maybe religious extremists running that whole area would be good for the world. We'll see, I suppose. Yeah, they live in ghettos. Yeah, that's something like a Holocaust. Yeah, sure. My first Street Fighter 2 Dynamo went up deluxe. I didn't see it yet. Nobody wants to call? I'm done. I want to talk about Street Fighter Deluxe. That's my opinion. Take it or leave it. Thank you, Chris. I think it would be kind of tacky. Thanks to all the Pats. Everybody donated all that other good stuff. Tomorrow we return. The return of Matt, and we get back to our regular programming. Whenever I do these, I always get, are you going to turn to this? Are you going to do this? No. I'm going back to being a clown because I like being a clown. It's a lot more fun. And if I am right, and these are end times, I'd rather be doing that than fucking anything else. I did my part. I'm done. I'm finished. So all you Prime bastards, putting up the after show now. I like this music they play now.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy. So, good luck. And all that other good stuff. Tommy, you want to see something funny? Do it in the after show. You're a member. Thank you. And I'll see you tomorrow. And again, I don't know the right thing. I don't know if there's not some other way to do this to get less people killed. I know the historical thing. And the historical thing that's created peace from 1945 to about 2001, when I think things changed, was basically something that's horrible, but was painted as a brave victory. It could have just been easily painted another way. The Kennedy family was anti-World War II. I don't know if you know that. There was some opposition to it until Pearl Harbor. So, it's always it's easy to be a peacenik until they kill your family. Again, happily be wrong. I don't need to. I'm not debating with anybody. I don't care that much. It's completely out of my control, and more than likely it's out of yours too.